Welcome back to Return to Evolution, where we're going through the legendary tutorials of Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution and seeing how we can apply them to Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. Today, Chapter 7, Attacking a Floating Opponent. This chapter consists of two sections, 7A, Floating your opponent, and 7B, Adding damage with midair combos. 7A, Floating your opponent, recommended rank up to 1st Dan. What it is. 7A wants you to find your floater attacks, also known as launchers. These are the attacks that you can use to initiate a mid-air combo, also known as a juggle. It also wants you to know that some of your moves only float on counter hit, so some experimentation is required here. Why it teaches you. Without exception, the most vulnerable state your opponent can be in is immediately after this type of attack. They can't block, they can't move, they can't choose how they land, or escape from a ring out. Finding these attacks and the opportunities to do these attacks is the fastest and best route to deplete your opponent's life bar. How it teaches you? This exercise just wants you to launch the opponent with these floater moves 5 times. Simple as that. How to replicate it? This one seems simple enough, you just have to find your launchers. The fact that the dummy has thrown out jabs in the Virtua Fighter 4 tutorial serves 2 purposes though. Launchers are often slow to start and are easily interrupted, and some launchers are only possible off counter hits. So let's see how we can improve how that's done. You can start by recording the dummy throwing out jabs approximately 1 second apart. This is a good start for finding a good window for your launchers. Finding attacks that can launch on counter hit can still be a little frustrating if you're trying to time it to intercept this jab, however. The easiest alternative is to set the dummy to the hit type counter, or to alternate between counter and normal to see the different launchers and their effects. There's no fast way to find out which of your attacks will launch on normal or counter hit, unfortunately, outside of going through the character's moves lists entirely. But a good first stop here should be your command list on virtualfighter.com, and trying any of the attacks here that say down in the grey frame difference columns is a good clue. Bear in mind that some of the attacks that say down in their data here will be bounds, crumples, or straightforward knockdowns without any float state, but at least it narrows your search down a little bit. 7B, adding damage with mid-air combos, recommended rank up to 1st Dan. What it is. Another experimentation activity, 7B wants you to figure out what works and what doesn't as a follow-up. Note that different launchers, along with the stats of the opponent when you launch them, can affect the height that they're launched to, so you may need different follow-ups for different launchers. Why it teaches you this. Since this is an exercise about cashing in on the best offensive opportunities that this game can give you, being comfortable with knowing what to do when you successfully land a launcher is where you can really score some points. 2 or 3 juggle combos can win you the entire round if you're familiar with each situation. How it teaches you this. This time it asks you to float the opponent, but then follow up with some mid-air combos. And all it really wants here is for you to do your launchers, and then just try pressing different buttons and just see what works and what doesn't. How to replicate this? With this one you can use any of the 3 dummy setups from 7A. The only difference being that you want to follow up on the launch attack. It's worth going into the advanced dummy settings here and setting the dummy to exact rise so that you can only hit them with true combos. Or you can just observe the combo counter turning green, indicating that they could have gotten out of it if you prefer. Things to experiment with here are whether the opponent is standing or crouching, whether it's a normal hit or a counter hit, whether you launch them in open stance or closed stance, and whether you need to use different follow-ups depending on the size and weight of the opponent. The combo guides and character wikis on virtualfighter.com are a good starting place since the community has done a lot of the work already for you here, but there's a huge difference between a player that has a couple of good dialer combos remembered and one that can get the most damage out of a launch regardless of the stage, stance or matchup. Much like we demonstrated in the wall combo video in the A to Z series, there are some reactive and analog elements in play here, so the more you practice, the more familiar you are with what your character can do at different juggle heights and distances. That'll definitely get you a long way, so this is a trial worth returning to from time to time. One final cool thing about the Virtua Fighter 4 tutorials that you might start to notice here is that failing, passing poorly, or passing exceptionally can all have different follow-up advice from the game. So if you feel like you're struggling in any of these, don't be afraid to let the time run out to get the maximum amount of guidance. And that's it for Chapter 7. This might seem a little bit woolly, you're just setting up a dummy and then beating it up. But ultimately this is good practice for knowing how to do this kind of experimentation for yourself whenever you pick up a new character. See you next week for Chapter 8.